Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Random Review. My name is Deborah Goldenberg. Connie Georgiou and I coordinate the Random Review program for the Friends of the Library, which sponsors these events. Connie, could you please turn on your camera and say hello to the audience?
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to see you.
And also joining us today will be our host, librarian Bonnie Brzezowski, who will be keeping an eye on things and presenting the questions at the end.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thanks.
Thanks, Bonnie. I have one more very special person to introduce, and that's the author of the book we're reviewing today, Henry Alford. Henry, could you join us for a moment?
Of course. Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Henry, we'll see you later at the end, and thanks. Okay. A couple of notes about GoToWebinar. If you're having problems, please write a note in the chat box. We'll be recording today's program, and you'll receive a link to it in your follow-up letter. There's also going to be a more polished version available on the library website. And we encourage you to submit questions for either our reviewer, Michelle, or Henry Alford at any time during the program using the question box. Please indicate who the question is for, and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible at the end. In the interest of leaving the maximum amount of time for our review, I'm going to dispense with some of the usual announcements today and just close by letting you know that the next month's review will be on June 9th. Bill Robbins, Emeritus Distinguished Professor of History, will review Coyote America by Dan Flores. Now I'd like to invite Annette Youngberg, a member of the Random Review Selection Committee, to introduce today's reviewer, and I'll say goodbye for now, and I'll see you at the end, and I hope you enjoy the review.
Thank you, Deborah. I'm delighted to introduce Michelle Mennett to the rest of our audience. Michelle started dance lessons at the age of 6. She fell in love with the magic of ballet dancers swirling around the stage. Since then, her life's work and passion has been dance, pretty much nonstop. Her dance training began in Palm Beach, Florida, as a Harkness Ballet trainee, and she continued on in New York City at the Alvin Ailey School and Luigi's Jazz Dance Center. At Florida State University, she earned her Master of Fine Arts in Dance. Some of the highlights of Michelle's 50 years as a professional dancer include performing in ballet and modern dance companies, learning her role in Pippin from one of Bob Fosse's dancers from the original show, touring internationally through Disney on Parade, teaching ballroom dance to millionaires in Palm Beach, teaching African dance to inner city kids through the Arts and Education program in New York, and teaching and choreographing at Oregon State University, University of Oregon, Western Oregon University, Majestic Theater, as well as many of our local dance studios. Michelle taught dance as an assistant professor of dance and body sciences at Denison University in Ohio and at DeSales University in Pennsylvania. She also opened the first Pilates studio in Oregon, right here, in 1992, and she's been teaching a blend of dance and Pilates pretty much ever since. Michelle is the founder and director of 10 Tiny Dances of Corvallis, and she teaches and performs with the Pacific Tap Dance Company in town. I'm sure Michelle could write her very own book about her life in dance, but today she's here to review And Then We Danced, A Voyage into the Groove by Henry Alford. Michelle, please join us.
Thank you, Annette, for that wonderful introduction. Hello and welcome, everyone. I am so delighted to be able to give this book review to such a wide audience via the internet. One good thing about the COVID pandemic, that we are doing that way now. Yes, I have been dancing and taking lessons since I was 6 years old, and by now, that's an awfully long time. I've enjoyed every minute of it. At 8 years old, I knew that dance was going to be my life. When I started my first degree in dance and had to take dance history from Pat Pertalion and read a lot of books, I thought, what a waste of time. Reading books about dance? Why, everything a dancer needs to know is learned in the studio. Well, thousands of dance books later and 2 degrees, I can tell you, yes, a dancer benefits greatly by knowing dance history, dance theory, and dance criticism. In his book, Mr. Alford gives us all 3 in the form of his very personal account of sleuthing around in the dance world. Part memoir, part dance history, this book is full of pivots, twists, and turns. If you're a dance teacher, you might discover by reading this book how your beginning dance students feel. If you're a dance student, you might be inspired to try something new, like Mr. Alford did. And if you're a dance connoisseur or just somebody who really loves dance, well, this book provides an inside view into many different forms of dance, as well as a bit of gossip about some of our dance greats. Next slide, please. Some people think of dance as ballet, jazz, and tap. Well, these are the typical Western civilization theatrical forms. The dance forms listed here on the slide are all in the book. You know, this is a very impressive list. The range of dance genres into which Mr. Alford dives and surfaces, again, not only still breathing, but transformed. For me, one of the messages of his book is loud and clear. If I can do it, so can you. Or if one dance form isn't right for you, just try another. There are countless forms and styles of dance and countless reasons to dance. Mr. Alford confesses his reasons to dance and clues us in on the motivations of some of the dance greats, such as Fosse, Baryshnikov, and others. Next slide. Ballet was my first dance love. That's me there on the left, the long-legged, gawky 12-year-old, and on the right at 19. All I ever wanted was ballet. But then when I moved to New York City, my dance world expanded. Still, I tended to seek out what I already knew, the typical Western theatrical dance forms, ballet, jazz, and tap. And it wasn't until books and college that my concept of dance really developed. I believe that this book can provide just such a shift or expansion in your view of dance. And Then We Danced is enlightening as well as entertaining. Next slide. I love the title of this book. How appropriate that dance is used as the metaphor for engaging with others in the essence of life. The phrase, "and then we danced," denotes the denouement of a drama, a relationship, of life, when all complexities and conflicts fade into the background. Words and policies no longer matter, and the participants get on with it. They enter into a connected flow of physicality and emotion. And the phrase, "a voyage into the groove," well, hold on to your hats when you jump into this book. It takes you down the rabbit hole to a wild and wonderful world, the epicenter of dance. Ready for the next slide. And dance our author did. Henry Alford, acclaimed comedic trendsetter and participatory journalist, does more than study dance from afar. He jumps right in with both feet. Take one look at Mr. Alford and you don't think, oh, well, he's a dancer. Quite the opposite. He's a regular Joe of a guy, really. But he emotes in pirouettes, shuffles and swings, rolls on the floor, sweats and jetés with the best of them. He even ends up in a performance with an internationally renowned modern dance company. Bravo, Henry. Hey, you should have also produced an accompanying DVD of your dance experiences and performances. Though Mr. Alford caught the dance bug late in life, he tells us at age 49, he is relentless and crafty in how he gets his foot in the stage door. He is his own pushy stage mother and fledgling dancer wrapped up into one dangerous package. For decades now, Mr. Alford has written for The New Yorker, Vanity Fair, and The New York Times. Among other books, he is the author of How to Live and Big Kiss, for which he won a Thurber Prize for American Humor. Now, at the end, we'll get to meet him and hear a little bit from him and find out what he's up to now. Next slide. Here are a couple of more titles, also by Mr. Alford, that I'm really looking forward to reading. Hint, hint to my family and friends out there for Christmas presents. For this book on dance, Mr. Alford entered the obstacle course of investigation, as he says, with only a smattering of ballroom and square dancing and a lot of freestyle rock and roll type dancing. And furthermore, he says, quote, I had just turned 50, which in gay years is 350. This Giselle was dancing to his death, not because a noble disguised as a peasant had betrayed him, but because he worried that his love handles were so shelf-like as to offer suitable support to a collection of decorative thimbles. I tell you, he's got a way with words. Next slide. This slide portrays the death scene from Giselle. Mr. Alford clearly has a good knowledge of dance history to be able to be making insider jokes on the plot lines of beloved ballet classics. Giselle, a romantic ballet, premiered in 1841 at the Paris Opera. Now, Giselle is definitely not a popular dance icon like Ginger Rogers or Gwen Verdon or not even Clara from the Nutcracker. Clearly, our author is a dance connoisseur and a wisecracker at the same time. There's something in this book for everyone. I liken it to a children's animated cartoon movie where they sort of mixed in the more adult humor jokes that the children wouldn't understand. In this book, there's something for everyone. Mr. Alford's tone is conversational, personal, at times humorous, occasionally an off-color joke, but always refreshing, informative, and inviting. He describes the deep passion and life force that is the heart of dance and also brings an edge of humor, sarcasm, and urban trendiness as we take this voyage with him. Next slide. Mr. Alford seems to love nothing better than to reveal his inner fear or delight while attempting different dance forms. When I read his description of entering a dance studio and joining a dance class for the first time, I feel like I am there with him. I remember the fear and the excitement. But his book is not just a visceral tell-all. He challenges us to dig deeper into the very meaning of dance. Some of his questions are, what is the purpose of dance? Why do different people dance? What are the rules? Hey, are there any rules? Next slide. On our voyage into the groove with Mr. Alford, we explore and consider dance as social entree, politics, rebellion, emotion and release, pure physicality, religion and spirituality, nostalgia, intimacy and socializing, and finally, as healing. These 9 functions of dance divide the book into chapters. But Mr. Alford knows that dance can't be neatly pigeonholed, and even this issue he addresses in the book towards the end. And next slide. In the first chapter on dance as social entree, we see 9-year-old Henry navigating the etiquette of ballroom dancing lessons imposed by his mother. Then we jump to Henry as a high school junior, finagling his way into the famed Studio 54 in New York City, where you were supposed to have been 21 years old, Henry. We are also treated to inside family stories of Arthur Murray. Now, I grew up when Arthur Murray franchise ballroom dancing studios were an American institution. So it was really fun to read stories that I'm sure appear in no other books. How do you do it, Mr. Alford? He gets these inside scoops. In this case, he interviews his family friend, Phyllis McDowell, who is one of Arthur Murray's twin daughters. I tell you, Mr. Alford does his dance sleuthing around very well. In the next slide, we see dance as politics. Mr. Alford starts out this section with recounting how he learned the Virginia reel as part of PE in public school. I did too, and it was torture. Oh, but wait, what does the Virginia reel have to do with politics? Well, trust Mr. Alford, he'll get us there. You'll learn about Henry Ford, to whom square dancing was all important. Mr. Ford claimed that square dancing was wholesome and American, as opposed to the vile communist Lindy Hop that was becoming popular at the time. So Mr. Ford pushed to have square dancing inserted into the phys ed curriculum of public schools. Oh, so that's why I had to suffer all those third grade boys stepping on my feet, poking and pinching me, and sweating on me. Thanks, Mr. Ford, you should have stuck to manufacturing automobiles. In this chapter on politics, Mr. Alford also touches on dance pieces choreographed specifically as political statements by choreographic greats such as Kurt Yost and Bill T. Jones. And he talks about dances from what he calls our first national dance, the cakewalk. And also, he talks about the cowboy ballets of Agnes DeMille. So let's go to the next slide. Mr. Alford tells us that, quote, in 1942, Agnes DeMille choreographed her cowboy ballet, Rodeo, for the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo. Set on a ranch out west, this ballet helped make the point that ballet was not solely the province of effete, hand-kissing Europeans and their rarefied concerns, a view held by some of the more fanatical modern dancers of the time. Ballet could be about ranch hands. There could be dust, unquote. In Mr. Alford's presentation of serious research, we learn the history and its significance, and he leaves us with a tongue-in-cheek one-liner that sums it all up. There could be dust. I just love that. Alford's witty New Yorker spice brings it home, makes it personal. Myself, having read piles of sometimes very dry dance history books, I enjoyed feeling that the author was having a personal conversation with me, and we were both laughing at some of the irony of different dance situations. Now, this slide shows Agnes DeMille in costume for the ballet Rodeo. Notice the ballerina is not wearing toe shoes and a tiara and a tutu, but has on a cowboy hat and cowboy boots. The other photo shows the dance hall girls in another DeMille ballet, Oklahoma. On a side note, I have to say that the dance hall girl was one of my favorite roles. I loved dancing and playing a sassy gal and not having to wear those torturous toe shoes. Who wouldn't love wearing one of those costumes, right? Okay, we're ready for the next slide. Mr. Alford states, it's also intriguing to see how the political climes under which a dancer or choreographer grew up affect the work he later creates. Take, for instance, George Balanchine. And Mr. Alford takes us on a tour of Balanchine's childhood and then proposes how these conditions may have shaped Mr. Balanchine's approach to ballet. Balanchine being perhaps the most famous ballet choreographer of the 20th century. And on to the next slide. Can you recall what it feels like to be a beginner in something? As adults, we often forget, but not Mr. Alford. That seems to be his profession. He enrolled in what he calls the absolute beginner ballet class taught by Kat Wildish, a former Balanchine dancer. Alford shares his experience through imagery and dialogue that puts you right in his ballet slippers, so to speak. I'm going to read a little bit from the book. On a balmy evening in August 2016, I walked into a huge mirror-lined studio on the 5th floor of 890 Broadway, formerly owned by choreographer Michael Bennett, A Chorus Line and Dreamgirls. The building is where ABT, that's American Ballet Theater, and a lot of Broadway shows rehearse. While walking down its dark, slightly ominous hallways, it's easy to convince yourself that you're at the epicenter of the dance world. I took a deep breath, prepared to clutch onto a bar for dear life. Yes, I'd taken 3 ballet classes before, but everything I'd read about Wildish's class led me to believe that when it came to absolute beginner ballet classes, this was Mount Everest. Mr. Alford goes on to describe the ballet class and then bemoans the most challenging bar exercise, which saw us putting the ankle of one straightened leg up on the bar and then legs still up there, turning 180 degrees, folding at the waist and putting first our palms and then our forearms on the floor. It's like you've jumped out of a window and mid-jump decided to do a push-up. Equally difficult, from there, go into passe by making a number 4 of your legs, then releve on the foot that's on the floor while putting your arms elegantly over your head on Quran, and then hold it. And he says, I would ray if I could ray. After this class, well, you can see, let me tell you first, in the slide there, the woman has her leg up on the bar. If she was to turn 180 degrees away from the bar, so her leg was still up on the bar behind her, and then fold forward at the waist, put her hands on the floor, and then from that position, miraculously spring up into the other position you see there of the lady in the tutu. That's what Mr. Alford had to do in this class. After this one class, our author becomes known as Henry with 4 classes by the teacher and invited to a pas de deux partnering workshop, leading to performing in a lecture demonstration. Oh, the trouble Mr. Alford gets himself into by just showing up. I thoroughly enjoyed his account of this saga, especially when in the last 7 minutes of the dress rehearsal, the dance instructor teaches them the most difficult move yet. And we'll go to the next slide, a fish. Alford's understandable response to his partner is, Jesus Christ, I can't believe he's teaching us this now. I personally have been in a similar situation. I danced for a choreographer who had a habit of changing the choreography just minutes before curtain. Very maddening. Mr. Alford totally captures the panic and shares all with his characteristic sense of humor. In the next section, we look at, oh, next slide, please. In the next section, we look at dance as rebellion. Mr. Alford introduces us to the revolutionaries Isadora Duncan, considered the mother of modern dance. And on the next slide, we see Martha Graham, who just passed in 1991 at the age of 96. But it is with Twyla Tharp that we get the full ride into modern dance, as we'll see on the next slide. Twyla Tharp's main modern dance teachers were Martha Graham and Merce Cunningham. We learned that she was dancing and creating in New York City in the 1970s when she was commissioned by the Joffrey Ballet to set a modern dance piece on the ballet company. The result was Deuce Coupe, set to Beach Boys music. Most ballets back then were not set to Beach Boys music, I can tell you. Ms. Tharp went on to create more than 160 dances for her own company, as well as New York City Ballet, Paris Opera Ballet, and the Royal Ballet, and others, plus choreographing for the Broadway stage and the movie version of the musical Hair. Did any of this intimidate the likes of Henry Alford? No. He contacts the Tharp studio and asks to interview Miss Tharp. But instead of an interview, he's invited to learn and perform the Tharp 1970 dance piece, The 100s. So on this next slide, we see Henry working on rehearsals for The 100s. And if you want to look at the Vimeo clip, while I read a little bit more from the book, you could use the link, well, it's not a link, you could use the address on the slide. Again, what I love about Mr. Alford's writing is that we learn valuable dance history and what it feels like to be a beginner at the same time. Let's see here, page 64. The 100s was inspired by baseball. Miss Tharp had been living in the woods one summer and watching a lot of the All-American pastime when she realized that most baseball plays last about 11 seconds. So she made a dance in which two people perform the same 100 sporting movement sequences. Then 5 dancers each simultaneously perform 20 of the sequences. Then 100 volunteers who are not professional dancers, and he tells us this is where I come in, each simultaneously perform one of the 11-second long sequences. So do you think Mr. Alford did this? Of course he did. He says, I was bowled over by how much choreography can be fit into 11 seconds. Only a few of the movements are baseball specific. There are allusions to cheerleading, boxing, golf, rock and roll, and ballet. Some are majestic and some are hilarious and awkward. We learned that from Mr. Alford that Miss Tharp kind of thought as this as a scientific experiment. He says, well, he quotes from Miss Tharp's book, first, the highly trained, disciplined, and rehearsed dancer performs a series of movements approaching an absolute in clarity. Passed down to dancers less well rehearsed, the movement declines until, when executed by completely untrained bodies, the same movement is seen with no detail and little definition. She concludes, thus the original 100s was an investigation of physical rigor and its deterioration. Mr. Alford says, oh, what a relief. Elaborate swan simulating choreography, even in an 11-second burst, is just far enough out of my grasp to rattle me. But deterioration, I can do. So not only does Mr. Alford get to perform, he also gets to have a real conversation with Miss Tharp. Another victory for our innovative dance noir detective. So we'll go on to the next slide now. The next chapter is on dance as emotion and release. Mr. Alford takes us on his contact improv voyage into the groove. This is a dance form begun in the early 70s by Steve Paxton and Nancy Stark Smith. As the name says, it's improvisation, and the goal is to move and find intersection with others via touch, sharing weight, and nonverbal communication. Now, were we in the library meeting room, as originally planned before COVID, this was one of the fun things I had planned for you to try out. But alas, contact improv with your computer just isn't going to work. So you're off the hook. I do want to mention that all the dance history background that I am giving is from the book. So I'm not saying quote every single time unless I'm directly quoting, but this information is all from Mr. Alford's book. All right, let's go to the next slide. We also see Mr. Alford as he attends a 5 rhythms class. 5 rhythms draws from indigenous and world traditions using shamanistic, ecstatic, and mystical practices. Fundamental is the idea that everything is energy and moves in waves and patterns and rhythms. But what moved me the most was Mr. Alford's reverence for the space in which the 5 Rhythms classes were held. To me, the dance studio, the dance space is sacred, like a temple. So the passage on page 93 really moved me when Mr. Alford tells me about one of the studios he took these classes in. It is a gorgeous and vast 11th floor space in the West Village that used to be Merce Cunningham's studio and now belongs to the Martha Graham School. When I walked in, it's about the size of 2 tennis courts and has 16-foot ceilings and lots of 9-foot tall windows on 2 sides of the room that look majestically out over the city. The dramatically inflamed narrator who lives inside my head announced to me, "This is where I will do my best work." To have this much space, let alone the fact that it's space drenched in dance history, is to want to move in a way as beautiful as the surroundings. On nights when I am the first dancer on the glossy dove gray floor at the Martha Graham space, I feel like a gold medal winning figure skater for whom the entire world has been personally zambonied. It would almost be impossible for me to act or be casual hereon. I have to match the exaltedness of the setting. I just love how he honors the dance space. That is just beautiful. Thank you. And the next slide. In the rest of this section, Mr. Alford takes us on a wild ride with Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire, Bob Fosse, Gene Kelly, and then he comes back to Contact Improv. Mr. Alford is truly a dancer in his writing. He can pivot from a deep dive into the intimate details of one dance choreographer or free associate amongst a whole bunch of different dancers and dance choreographers jumping from one to another that it'll make your 32-foot days head spin. But he always brings it back to resolution. And we see Mr. Alford there at the lobby of the Museum of Modern Art. He's on top of the Contact Improv pile, which could be a good place to be depending on what their next move was. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Mr. Alford starts the section Dance as Pure Physicality with a deep dive into the career of the hoofer, Sevian Glover, whom you see here on this slide. And of course, Mr. Alford dances a mile in the shoes of a hoofer. He starts tap classes at the Alvin Ailey School and likens it to drumming with the feet. Again, we feel his angst when he shares with us how his tap teacher was teaching them cramp rolls. Quote, first on a leisurely 1, 2, 3, 4 beat. Then on a peppier 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. And then in a crashing waterfall 1, 2, 3, 4. Then he'd switch up the order of the foot placement, or he'd drop a bombshell like, this time the 3 isn't on the 3, it's before the 3. Henry says, a statement which caused my universe instantaneously to seem a lot larger. There are beats between beats? Dude. Alford waxes philosophical when he points out that, and hold on, let me get to this spot in the book. The physicality function shines a light on dance's essential pathos, by which I mean that dance is a moment out of time. Dance is hugely dependent on the physical range of the body, which more than any other building block of the arts, like words, paint, or clay, is subject to the ravages of time. What is dance if not an attempt to deny that passage? Mr. Alford shares that drive to deny the passage of time when he tells us, like a lot of people, I tend to think of myself as being perpetually 31 years old, seasoned enough not to commit the atrocities of adolescence and my early 20s, but not so old as to have cut off my options in life. I'd like to think that if I really wanted to, and if I really committed myself to it, I could still become a novelist or playwright or pastry chef, because to believe in these possibilities is to live at the misty intersection between hope and faith, far from resignation. A lot of my other ships in life have sailed, but in the harbor, safe behind the breakwater of my delusion, I keep a small fleet, the sails of which are perpetually luffing. Doesn't he have just a wonderful way with words? That just really, it's like poetry. And one last short passage here. At a Zumba class, he says, the dancing ramped up in fiery intensity, which was thrilling. I hurled my will into the air and hoped my body would follow. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Mr. Alford brings us into the fold of dance as religion and spirituality by interviewing Wendy Hagee, a Christian praise dancer who is founder of the Raise Him Up Praise Dance School and Ministry in New York City. So let's now watch a short clip of Wendy dancing her praise dance in the church. Thank you for playing this clip for me. Thank you. I think that's enough. I hate to interrupt it. That's good. Thank you. I hated to interrupt her dancing because that was so lovely. I would just like to give you a little taste of it. Also, in this chapter on religion and spirituality, we are treated to a detailed section on Bob Fosse, famous jazz dancer and choreographer. And you may ask, what is Fosse doing in the section on religion? Again, we just need to trust Mr. Alford. He'll make this connection for us. All right, let's go to the next slide. And dance as nostalgia. Mr. Alford shares his passion for the 1960 rock musical Hair. And then we follow him onto the stage of the famed Apollo Theater in New York, where as part of a tour that was being offered by the American Tap Dance Foundation, he learns the Cole Stroll on the stage at the Apollo. Did I just repeat myself? Yes, jealous. What a thrill to be able to say, I've done the Cole Stroll at the Apollo. Now, I've done it at the Majestic here in Corvallis, second best to the Apollo. All right, let's go to the next slide. Finally, we attend jazz dance classes with Mr. Alford at the Luigi Jazz Dance Center. And I can attest from years ago when I took classes from Luigi himself that yes, the Broadway stars were all and Broadway wannabes were all there at the studio. And it was so fun to relive the vibe at the studio. Mr. Alford, you captured it perfectly. The competition, the camaraderie, and of course the challenge of those intricate and sensual jazz dance routines. Thanks for the visit. All right, let's go to the next slide. Dance is intimacy and socializing. Mr. Alford talks about wedding rituals and parties, drag ball culture and voguing, social dancing and ballroom dancing, and again, we visit contact improv. Wait, how does one keep up their contact improvisation practice during a COVID pandemic? Well, of course, our innovative Mr. Alford and one of his dance partners have a solution. Let's look at that on the next slide. Great personal stories in this chapter on intimacy and socializing and intriguing dance history. So we see Mr. Alford in his bumper ball and his dance partner in a hazmat suit as they practice socially, COVID era contact improv. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Our last chapter takes us to Dance as Healing, where Mr. Alford shares his experience in dance therapy classes with Alzheimer's patients. Over the months that he attended these weekly classes, and he didn't just attend, he assisted with the classes, he builds connections and finds that there's healing, not just for the seniors, but in an unexpected twist, for himself as well. He finds some healing. This is a touching tale and a lovely way to end the book. I thoroughly enjoyed and appreciated Mr. Alford's book. And though I'm saying this as a dance professional, I think anyone who likes dance will also like this book. I hope all of you will read it and use it as a guide to dive even deeper into thinking about really seeing, and of course, best yet, doing dance. Now, I have a request for an encore, so to speak. The book is not just an enjoyable read, but a rich resource. It contains numerous references to dance books, articles, films, and performances and interviews, but there is no bibliography. With a complete bibliography, it would be easier to use the book as source material for the layperson who might want to get caught up on a bunch of great dance films, but also as a possible reference for college courses in dance. I would have used it back when I was teaching dance appreciation and dance history. So I say, let's go to the next slide. More, encore. I think a second edition would be a gift to us all. Thank you very much, Mr. Alford, for sharing your insights, your inside scoops, your trials and tribulations, and best of all, your successes. I love dance evermore, having seen it through your eyes. So please now, if you would join us on screen and take a big bow. We're welcoming Mr. Alford to come on. Hi, there's Mr. Alford. Thank
Well,
you.
Michelle, that was so lovely. Thank you. That was really
my
a lovely.
pleasure. A big round of applause for Mr. Oh, he can't hear your applause. So put your, well, he can't see you either. But anyway, Henry, know that we're all applauding. That was a wonderful book. And then we danced a voyage into the groove. So welcome, Mr. Alford. We're so pleased to have you visit us here in Corvallis. And
Thank
we'd
you
like to
so
hear,
much for having me.
yeah, we'd like to hear a little bit about what you're dancing or writing about now.
Sure. So I'm not working on another book yet. I'm writing lots of stuff for the New Yorker, mostly short things. I write both for the Talk of the Town section, which are short reported pieces, and then I also write humor, which is a very different kettle of fish because that's something that I can't get an assignment for. So with the Talk of the Town, I'm every month maybe I'm sending in 3 story ideas to an editor who's saying yay or nay. Whereas with humor, you know, that's kind of like writing a short story or a poem. You have to do the whole thing on spec and then you mail it in. So that's the writing stuff. And the dance stuff, yeah, as you showed that picture of my dance partner and I should say that that woman whose back is supporting me is 72 years old. Yay!
Oh my,
Yeah, I know.
that's impressive.
It's really impressive. So yeah, after having written this book, I think the realization dance-wise was that I'm really not someone who has any facility for set choreography. So I'm much more comfortable improvising, and I'm, you know, clearly I'm very willing to make an ass of myself, which is a great aid in improvisation, I have found.
Yes.
So basically, I have been for the past 6 years going every Saturday afternoon to a studio and doing contact improvisation, which you explained very well. For people who've never seen it, it looks a little bit like if you've ever seen acro yoga, which is a very acrobatic form of yoga, or if you've ever seen the group Pilobolus, they essentially came out of contact improvisation. So as soon as the pandemic broke, though, of course, we couldn't do any of the things that make contact improv what it is. the two important parts of it are that it's a rolling point of contact. So you and your partner are always touching in some way. And then there's a lot of weight sharing, that you're leaning on each other a lot.
Here, I'm leaning on you.
You're leaning on me. Hello, well, I'm leaning over here.
Oh,
There. See how hard it is to do.
no, wait. Well,
Right.
I'm reversed, so I have to put my hands on the opposite side in my screen. There you go.
Oh, okay. So basically, my Saturday group has turned into a Tuesday night group, and it looks like a Zoom call where each person is in his or her own apartment dancing, and it gets a little nutty, which is to say, we have danced with our furniture. We have all pulled out vegetables. Like you've never seen anything so beautiful as like a red cabbage cut in half and then put very close up to the screen while the person is dancing. It's kooky, and that's why I dance, for that kind of fun. That part of it is stress reduction, of course, that if you have the kind of job that I have where you're responsible for lots of facts and figures, then you really want to cut loose at the end of the day, and there's nothing better. One of my dance teachers, a prompt that she often gives is dance so fast that you can't think about it. And that's really helpful. And so I love that aspect of it. I love the social aspect of it. In my dance group, there are, in my regular Saturday group, there are people who I would never have come into contact with. There are 5 Chinese nationals. There's a potty mouth Israeli psychoanalyst. There's an M to F trans sex worker. It's so diverse. And that's fascinating. I never thought that that the impulse to kind of shake and groove to music would lead me to meeting all of these really interesting new people. So I think that the social aspect is still really a draw. Just the pure physicality, the exercise. I will sweat through 4 t-shirts if I dance for 2.5 hours. It is so strenuous. So
And
I love.
that occurs when you're dancing alone at home?
Not when I'm alone at home. No, I do sweat, but not nearly as much. I really need to,
Right.
yeah.
Be with other people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have the physicality of supporting their weight and twirling and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Definitely.
That stuff is really it asks a lot of you.
It does.
And that can be really wonderful. Um
It's
so
so exciting that you have found your, what do you call it? Your mettle, your métier,
my
with
métier,
with contact improv. And I'm glad, because of all the dance forms I've done, that's the one where I'm the least comfortable. I much rather know what I'm going to do ahead of time.
yes, no, exactly. And I almost feel like you can divide dancers into those 2 groups. Most people are much more comfortable doing a line dance, doing a ballet routine, whatever, something where they're told, here's what you need to do. So yeah, that was really fortunate that I figured that out. And then the other kind of dancing, of course, that I can do is this ecstatic dancing, which is essentially, it's just club dancing, but maybe a little bit more wild and woolly. That they really want you to sort of release your head and do that kind of stuff. And that's a kind of dancing that anyone who likes to dance could do. I mean, that's like going to a wedding and dancing. And fortunately, my interest in that, because that's something I can do in my own living room by myself. I don't have to travel half an hour to a dance studio. And interestingly, my boyfriend started dancing along with me. And, here we were in the 15th year of our relationship, and we started dancing together. And it has been so lovely. Maybe I'm a total button down wasp with no feelings whatsoever, but I'm always noticing that if Greg and I start dancing after dinner, that's the first sensual act of the day. That I'm a very practical person. I'm just getting by. And unless I have something really fabulous for lunch, which happens, once every 4 months, then yeah, I don't, there's nothing sensual or passionate going on in my life. So I think, there's yet another really terrific function of dance is it can, it can keep,
It connects people.
it connects people. Yeah, even
As
people.
you chose the right title for your book. Yeah. And then we dance. That's the phrase that says we're really connected. Nothing else matters at this moment. That's why I love that you chose that title. It's so appropriate.
Oh, great. Thank you. No, and I love that you talked about it because, in my mind, a book should always, or particularly a nonfiction book, should be about something other than what you think it's about. And what I was trying to do with this book is write a book about partnership. That's
Ah.
really what it's about. That that dancing, when we do it as little kids, it's awkward, it's awful, but that's how we learn how to interact with the opposite sex. And then yeah, that you can go through every permutation, and it's always about dealing with this other person who you're moving with, and how do you figure that out?
Well, that's one of the things that really moved me about your book, Henry, if I may call you Henry.
Oh, please.
Yeah, is that you really connect with people, from other people in the dance class with you that are beginners to Twyla Tharp herself, who can be a little cold and standoffish. She's up there, and you manage to have a real conversation with her. She winks at you. So throughout the book and all your stories, you are connecting with people, and always you're a people person and a dance person too, no matter what form. And I really love this book and enjoyed it. And let's check and see if we have any questions from the audience before we run out of time. Bonnie, do you want to come on and herald the questioning? See if I'm looking over there because their monitor is that way. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Great. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, we do have a few questions. Leslie asks, and this is for both of you, what about dance as art? What does this mean to you, that dance is an art?
Henry, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go?
Sure. Yeah, when we broke the book down into chapters, the politics, socializing, et cetera, I thought about doing dance as art, but to my mind, it's always art. So it was almost, that made it difficult to write about, that these smaller, more specific angles at it were I thought a better way to go about it. How about you, Michelle?
Yeah, I would say that, of course, dance is art, but you were dropping down to a deeper level of, is it a political motivation underneath that art? Is there a spiritual motivation underneath that art? So I feel like you were peeling layers of the onion back. So yes, absolutely. It's definitely the art is the first thing. Yeah. Another question. I hope we answered your question. Sorry.
I think you did. This is for Mr. Alford. Did you inform each instructor that you are a participatory journalist? Did that help getting involved with famous dancers, teachers, and schools, do you think?
It depended on what I was doing. Like the Twyla Tharp thing, yes, as Michelle explained. But a lot of times it was just me showing up at a tap dance class and it didn't seem necessary. Or maybe I would take like 10 classes, and then if I realized, okay, yes, I am going to write about this particular class, then I would tell the teacher, and you know, if I needed to do any interviewing or what have you, do that afterwards. So I've used both techniques, both where I'm contacting the person and where they don't know. And yeah, you get different results, but it's the sort of thing that it's usually best for me to call it once I'm in the room. Then I know which method is going to work better.
Thank you for that. This question is for me. It might be a bit geared towards Michelle, or from me. It might be a bit geared towards Michelle. I'm just curious, Michelle, like, what do you think of the popularity of fitness crazes like barre, for example? Like, I do a bunch of barre classes. I love the incorporation of like ballet and dance, like into exercise. And I know you mentioned was mentioned at the beginning that you have managed a studio or something like that. Like, what do you think of that kind of fitness craze?
I think that's a great question, Bonnie. And I love, if people are staying fit, I don't care what label you put on it, whether it's a absolute beginner ballet class, as Henry dubbed it, or it's a barre 3 class or a Zumba class, whatever label it gets. If you're moving and that inspires you to go and get a good workout, whether you're doing it for art or fitness, you're moving and that's what counts. I will say that if you really want the best workout, instead of going to a barre class, go to a ballet studio. But a lot of people are not going to do that. It's intimidating, or you're in there with a bunch of little girls. I love Henry's chapter about going to a beginning ballet class and showing up at the wrong time, and there was a bunch of little girls there. I mean, wherever you need to go. I think it's great that people are having a lot of fun dancing and getting fit. So
Yeah, I think any kind of movement is great. To me, what's this sort of related to this, I think the popularity of the dance TV shows like So You Think You Can Dance and Dancing with the Stars, that's an interesting thing to me, because to my mind, those shows, although they're fabulously entertaining, I do think that they put the emphasis on the wrong things, that viewers come away from those shows really interested in tricks and in flash, when really the most beautiful thing about dance is the relationship between two dancers, how it changes over time. So I have slightly different feelings about the dance TV shows.
Well, and I love that emphasis on it. Go ahead, Michelle.
When it becomes more about the costumes and the flash and the tricks, yes, you're starting to lose the essence of dance. So
yeah, right.
I totally agree with that.
There's even a move on for the men on those dance TV shows. There's a move where the man goes like that and a shirt flies off. It's like, wow, that's a very contemporary form of choreography.
Wasn't that what we were going to do for our exit bow for this webinar? Do you have your special shirts ready?
The tearaway dress, yeah.
I'll be sure to end the webinar right at that point, just so we don't scare anybody. Well, it is 1:01, so I'd like to invite Debbie and Deborah and Connie and Annette to join us again, just so we can kind of say goodbye. Deborah could maybe send us off with a few words.
Yes, I'd like to thank everyone who participated in this event. It was terrific, and especially Henry, thank you so much for joining us. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Henry.
And thank you to our audience, and we hope to see you next month. And with that, I think we'll all say farewell for now.
Jazz hands.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you, everybody.